Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Film Freaks Television. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and we're doing it once again through Zoom. And this time we've got my co-host here, Paul A. Presenza. How are you doing, Paul?
What? I'm Tony Clifton. Come on.
What?
That was his Tony Clifton impression, I guess.
I know. I felt. I get it.
I love Tony Clifton. He's so obnoxious. He's my favorite character.
He was probably well. I will get into that in a second. And we've got our special guest. She's back for Film Freaks. I think the last one you did with me was you did Clerks. I think was Film Freaks. So
That's
back
a
in
long time ago.
yeah, that was 2020. So
Wow.
Like, was that COVID?
that was pre-COVID. That was
Right
like
before COVID,
right
right?
before COVID. Yeah, it was
I
February.
see a little pair of ears back there.
Oh yeah, Bubby's chewing on his bone.
Yay.
Well,
Zeke is-
What was Zeke doing?
he's just sleeping,
Uh,
which he should be because he's driving me nuts.
Well,
Uh-huh.
good. So Jackey Hall, you've been back. You're back, and so I picked this movie originally, and we'll get into this real quick. So I know that Paul is not a huge Jim Carrey fan.
No, I hate him.
Yeah, and and
Jesus.
Jackie loves Jim Carrey. So this is so funny. So Jackie had never seen Man on the Moon. This is her first time.
Really,
And
I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I know.
I was surprised too because I like me and how many times did we watch Liar Liar when I was living with you? I don't even know.
I have watched that movie probably in the millions.
That's
Right.
what I mean. So the person who loves Jim Carrey didn't see this movie, and the person who doesn't
Well-
like Jim Carrey saw it when it came out.
Well, do you know what? After watching this movie, I probably did try to watch it and then just turned it off.
Probably. So and we're gonna talk about that because this was your first time watching it, and you said before earlier that you were, I guess you weren't a fan of it necessarily.
I was confused. I was like, is my anxiety really bad right now? Or am I not paying attention? Or like, what is going on?
Well, you're probably a little young, but Andy Kaufman. I mean, this is the whole thing is about Andy Kaufman. And
I remember Andy Kaufman.
I'm surprised you remember Andy Kaufman. Okay, but yeah, it does follow the way he kind of sort of was in a lot of his act. So it can be off-putting, his style of comedy. So if you're not used to that, if you don't know anything about Jim, if all you know is Jim Carrey and nothing about Andy Kaufman, I can see how a movie like this would totally turn you off immediately.
So I know about Andy Kaufman. I've never watched any of his stuff, so that's probably where the confusion came in.
Exactly. So okay,
I'm old, so I remember.
So 1999, I believe. I think that's when this movie came out.
Yeah.
I was like 11.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So I remember
Like
exactly.
17,
Yeah, I remember
18.
okay. I was God, how old was I? 99.
50.
Well, no.
Oh, you're saying when the movie came out. I thought
Yeah.
you meant when
I
Andy
know.
Kaufman was on TV.
Oh no. When the movie came out in 99, I remember my sister took me to see it, right? But before we got to see it, Nick at Night was doing Andy Kaufman like a thon, and they were showing some of the old Andy Kaufman bits. And one of the bits was the special, the big special he had where was talking to Howdy Doody. And my favorite bit of that show was that he was like interviewing somebody. You know how like they sit at a desk and and they're a little bit higher than the guest whenever the interviewers interview them or whatever. His was like a fucking like high up there. He was like looking down at the guests and talking to them. And it was like that's what he was. He was a jokester. Like
he was a troll. He was the first troll who fucked with people, and that's why I loved Andy Kaufman.
And I saw that special, and in that special, they actually had the scene where it like the vertical hold and the TV starts messing up. I actually remember walking over to my TV and hitting it because I thought I hadn't seen Man on the Moon yet. So it was like right before I saw it. So I started hitting the TV thinking, it got me. And so when I watched the movie, I said, I get it. Like I understand, like this made me like laugh. And I was like, even from the grave, Andy Kaufman was like trolling me and I loved it. And so let's I guess let's take it from the very beginning of the story. So we've got it begins with Andy Kaufman fucking with everybody, saying that the movie is over and like the credits are gonna roll. And I mean, when you saw that, Jackey, what were your first thoughts when you first saw like the opening scene of the credits rolling and shit?
I thought I started the movie at the wrong place.
Right, exactly. That's
I mean, I did, and then I started. I like clicked the thing to check the bar, and it was like the beginning. And I was like, okay, I guess we're starting from the end of the movie and going to the front. I don't know.
Yeah, and then see, there you go. He confuses you from the front movie, and that was just amazing. And then you get a look into his life as a kid, and that he was a very sort of sad child.
It's a very fine line between where Andy Kaufman is entertaining you and where Andy Kaufman is entertaining himself, because a lot of it is him entertaining himself. And
there's a theme with that where what's his face is asking him, who are you entertaining, the crowd or yourself?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that's like the theme of the movie in a way, like and so that was one of the best questions he could ask, and pretty much just sums up the whole movie, because that's all. Like, I mean, Andy really just wanted to have fun, and that's why I really thought you'd get a connection with this movie, Jackey, is that he did practical jokes a lot, like that's where you do a lot of practical jokes. But
yeah, I do a lot of jokes, but mine are a little bit different. But I could tell obviously by like what he was saying that like he was like joking, but I really just didn't get the sense of humor. I'm probably gonna have to watch it a couple of times to get it.
Yeah.
And as I was pointing out to Jonathan before we came on, one of the things that I had an issue with is the fact that the movie portrays him that he's always on, so that it's like, well, he's constantly like that, but that's not really the case. He, if you go back and read some of the people who had worked with him said, oh yeah, he was perfectly professional and normal for the most part when he was behind the scenes and doing stuff. It's just that when he was on camera, he just couldn't help himself but to be into one of these personas that he'd created and just to fuck with people because he could. And it's just his thing. But if you don't know that, if you haven't seen that sort of thing or know about that, you're going to be very, very confused, because you're going to think that he's being portrayed as some kind of autistic, strange person when he's not. This is just a very different style of humor that, like you said, you're not used to if you don't know about that.
Right. Yeah. And I chatted with, and I think I told you this, Stro, Paul. I talked to Stro, our buddy Stro, who was actually, who's a wrestler, and he, knew Jerry Lawler, and he said when he was a kid, he actually met Andy, because he's from a wrestling family, so he was constantly there, and he met Andy, and he said Andy was a very polite guy, and I loved hearing that, because that's sort of what they portray here, is that he was a polite guy. He was, that he sort of didn't, care for the Hollywood or anything. And that's what I thought. I was telling you before, Paul, that I was pretty sure you would love that part of this movie, is that, he was basically saying, I don't care about ABC. If they're not gonna agree with me, then, to hell with them. I'd rather work as a, was a busboy than, work for ABC.
Yeah. And I do. But again, that comes more from me liking Andy Kaufman and less Jim Carrey. I'm almost inclined to think that it's Carrey who decides to sort of portray Kaufman as always on, as opposed to just on during the cameras.
Apparently, there's a documentary that's on Netflix that is with Jim Carrey. You've seen it, I'm sure, right?
I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen.
Have you seen it? See, okay, so you might be a little confused because if you saw that documentary, you sort of saw him portraying Andy Kaufman before this movie, before you saw the movie. So maybe that's where you know a lot of stuff. But in that, he is a what is it? Basically a method actor. And so when he's always on, period, when he's method acting, he's always portraying Andy, but he's always sort of portraying one side of Andy, you know, or and he's portraying the Joker side of Andy, the one that's playful and goofy, and that kind of upset other actors because he can't be Andy without, you know, because he's not Andy. He never met Andy. He doesn't really know Andy. He only knows what he's seen in the videos of Andy. Right. So if he's pretending to be Andy at all times, he's only being the guy that he's seen at all times, which means that unless written differently or something, he has to play it like that, you know. So
there were people that knew Andy Kaufman who said that Jim Carrey's performance was more of a caricature than anything else because he didn't really capture all the sides of Andy Kaufman. But I mean, Andy Kaufman is an extremely complex character. I can't imagine there are very many people who really could capture the full range of Andy Kaufman beyond Andy Kaufman himself. So I can't fault, you know, I can't fault Jim Carrey for that part of it. But I still, the biggest problem with me is my intense dislike of Jim Carrey. It's very difficult for me to put that aside, and I get it. That's my problem. It's a thing.
Hey, it's not your
a problem.
It's not a problem.
He's just not funny to me at all. I think he overacts in every single case, and in this case,
and he knows that too. So
he knows he's an overactor.
You know,
it's somewhat helpful in this case, but even so, it's just
What was that line in the bloopers or whatever of Liar Liar with a girl overactor, and he looks like just a bit like he knows he's that way, but like that's what that's his energy, right, and that's what you know when you get Jim Carrey. Now he might be a little less like Eternal Sunshine in the Spotless Mind. He was very less overacting, and he was very subtle, and he was very whatever. And stuff.
What about the Truman Show?
The Truman Show, he had a little overacting in that part too, but not as much.
Not his normal.
Yeah, not his normal. Yeah. So I agree with that.
And the thing is that, you know, he's the star, and then you've got the guy who's probably the best director for this subject matter, Milos Forman, because he is a guy who's used to playing eccentric, over-the-top characters and actors. I mean, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know, he's got Jack Nicholson playing, you know, this iconic, crazy character there. And Amadeus, where he's got Thomas Holtz, who actually, you know, even though I love Holtz's portrayal of Mozart, that was over-the-top portrayal of Mozart, to be sure.
Woody Harrelson and The People versus Larry Flint.
That
was a very over the top, but not nearly as, I mean, if Jim Carrey played that role, it would be way over the top, you know, or whatever.
So I guess I was expecting, given Milos Forman, that it would have been a better film, but to me, it was just kind of meh. Now, having seen it again for this show, I like it a little better than when I originally saw it. I just wish it hadn't been Jim Carrey. I just wish somebody else, but I can't think of who else it would be. I mean,
we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, who else would it have been?
I said
Tommy Wiseau.
Tommy Wiseau. Oh my God. Actually, he wasn't even around. Well, maybe he was. He wasn't.
Tony Clifton, you're tearing me apart.
What was the wife's name or the girlfriend's name? Was her name Lisa?
Lisa.
I'm like thinking,
I'm Lisa.
I'm wondering about that because what was Courtney Love?
Oh, Lynn Margolis.
Lynn. Okay. You're tearing me apart, Lynn. You know.
Yeah.
But no, I was thinking Robin Williams would have been, another person and
I'm
also overacting.
I'm also not really very much of a Courtney Love fan.
Yeah.
However, I mean, and here's another thing that I thought was odd about the film. I love Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito is wonderful as always, but it was very odd to me that he's there playing George Shapiro when everybody else in Taxi is playing themselves as their character. He's not there, but he's like
Right.
the primary guy in Taxi, but he's playing another. Why did they do that? It was very
They did it
weird.
because, well, I think they did it, and honestly, this is my opinion. I think they did it because Danny DeVito, well, it was Danny DeVito's production company, by the way, that produced this. So he was a big producer on it.
He get to do what he wants.
He probably, yeah, he probably could do what he wants, but he also probably wanted to give love to this film, himself, right? If he just played the character and that he played in Taxi and just had that little cameo, it would have been sort of kind of a boring, thing. But it was so nice to see sort of their all the characters playing themselves, and most of the time. It was really weird to kind of see Norm Macdonald play Michael Richards, in the Fridays skit. But it was, it was weird. It was cool to see like Christopher Lloyd playing his character in Taxi, Judd Hirsch.
Yeah, they all looked a little old, especially Jeff Conaway, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Carol Kane looked a little old and whatnot, but it was okay, because if you were, either if you knew that show, you knew that those people couldn't have, I mean, they couldn't have nowadays they probably could get it where they could have showed like clips from the thing and then put the people in there, because that's actually stuff that they do now with like green screen. But
it was nice to see Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti is one of my favorite actors, so I had almost forgotten that he was in there doing really well. But like there's other weird little bits in there too, like when they have Andy coming off to do his original thing on Saturday Night Live, and Richard Belzer is introducing him. Well, apparently Richard Belzer was not the guy who introduced him. It was George Carlin originally. So then you got to think, well, George Carlin, he was still alive back then. Why didn't they just get George Carlin?
No, they're probably money, like, I mean, they were already spending $84 million on this movie. I understand people are like, well, 84 plus 200,000 might not be I mean, they were probably trying to watch as much money as they could on this, like, already. And it did not, at the end of the day, this did not get, did not make its money back and everything, which kind of sucks. That's why it doesn't have, it has, people love it. And the people who are fans love this movie, and they, will own everything. Like me, I love this movie, but I don't even think it's on Blu-ray right now. It might be.
Well, here's the question then. If it did not do well, why? Was it because, Jim Carrey didn't do a good enough job? Was it that Milos Forman didn't do a good enough job? Or was it just that there were not enough people that were fans of Andy Kaufman in general who understood what was going on and, understood and got it, basically?
Well, I think it was the movie within itself, like just how, like you said, Jim Carrey's always on, like the writing. I don't know who chose that or whatever, but you would think that if Andy Kaufman had a lot of fans, you have to look at this and be like, if they were watching this and saw Jim Carrey's performance, it wasn't that he did a bad performance, but like you said, it wasn't Andy Kaufman, they probably would have been turned off by it.
Right. And, you mentioned the writing. The writing is done by two guys who wrote Ed Wood, which is my favorite film of all time. And, like, for them to write this movie, doing another biopic,
biopics are tricky.
Yeah. Well, and it's about the film industry, and once again, sort of like, it's got a little bit of that in it, and the entertainment. It's just one of those things. I think people just saw this film and that they were just like, we don't know who Andy Kaufman is,
Right. Whereas I think they could get away because there was a lot of embellishment in the Ed Wood movie, but because Ed Wood was a relative unknown, I don't think it really mattered so much. Whereas Andy Kaufman is a lot more of a public figure. That there were more people who recognized that and said, well, maybe he wasn't like that all of the time, or maybe this didn't quite ring true. They could get away with that with Ed Wood because very few people knew who he was.
Yeah, exactly. And Johnny Depp could have done this, maybe.
That's interesting.
That would have been
interesting.
I think he would have done a good job. He kind of looks a little bit more like Andy than, it's just, I think that's the problem, is like they're probably trying to make sure that they didn't do another Ed Wood. They didn't, like, Johnny probably didn't want to, act in another movie just like that.
I'm almost positive that this was a role that they specifically wanted for Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I bet he also sought this out and, had a big part of it. Even before they picked Milos Forman, maybe he was already cast, so Milos just came in and did what he could with it, and I mean, like, in that documentary, they go into how difficult it was working with Jim Carrey while he was always being Andy Kaufman. So you could not talk to Jim Carrey as Jim Carrey. You couldn't say, oh, Jim, blah, blah, blah. You would have to say, Andy, I need you to sit over here and do this, or whatever. And I think that was interesting because there was points where they were sort of with with Tony Clifton, when he was Tony Clifton, he was Tony Clifton, like they couldn't, you couldn't call him Andy, But
I don't get why there'd be an issue with that. There's, probably a smaller percentage of actors that do method acting, but if you're in the film industry, that comes with the game.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it's just, when you're playing sort of a practical jokester kind of character, you're probably going to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then, people like, Daniel Day-Lewis is famous for doing his method thing, but even he, when he's in character, he knows when it's time not to be in character on set. I mean, he's going to do that sometimes, especially if there's some technical stuff that needs to be taken care of. He's not going to sit there and play, the guy from the, There May Be Blood, if there's a technical issue that has to be solved for this movie to continue.
Right.
Whereas Jim Carrey, he doesn't really come from an acting background. He comes from a comedian background. Maybe he doesn't quite get that. And maybe that's why his method acting was different.
I don't think that's it. Me, like, being an actress myself, like, sometimes only method acting is the only way you can stay in a certain character. And so if that's going to make the film bad, even if there is a technical difficulty, like I said, like, you're in the film industry, what you signed up for. Like, this happened. And everybody knows that actors are crazy as shit. They're off their fucking rocker most of the time. I've literally ran lines. I'm not going to speak the name of the famous person. She's very, very famous, who was doing back bends, like walking down the wall while we were running lines. And you were probably like, well, that's not really that crazy. It seemed pretty crazy at the time.
I would think that's crazy. But also, I would look at that and go, okay, well, I guess that's just that person, right? Like, that's how they...
Right. You have to accept, it's a circus out there. You have to just do you.
Yeah. And understand, like, I guess Milos Forman probably knew what he was getting himself into with Jim, and
yeah, they normally know if they're going to go method.
But I honestly, and this is coming from a person who has seen this movie probably way more times than you guys have. Probably more times than you guys have done it together, like, put together. I absolutely just adore this film, even with, that being said, that stuff, because I just enjoy Jim Carrey's performance, and I enjoy I enjoyed learning more about Andy that I didn't know originally, and looking back, I've seen some clips from the original acts, that this inspired, right? So there's that bit in the beginning where he's like doing Latka before Latka, and he was saying, I'm going to do the imitation of Jimmy Carter. Well, he did on Saturday Night Live on a bit, he did his imitation of Archie Bunker, and it was hilarious because it was Latka doing, him saying, "Get away, meathead," or whatever, go away, whatever. And it was just so funny, but not many people would know who Archie Bunker is, so they added Jimmy Carter.
Why do I know that name?
He was a part of a sitcom called
All in the Family. I'm sure you watched it even when you were young.
Yeah, my stepdad used to watch that shit every day. That's why I blacked that out.
It was not
All in the Family, right?
I think so.
Something about kissing cousins and my family. I'm just kidding. It doesn't say that, but fuck that.
I don't
show.
It
reminds me of a very dark time of my life. I shall hide now.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is like this show, and I think maybe I mentioned it earlier or not, but that's a thing that Paul and I talked about. Paul hates sitcoms, a lot, like,
I totally get that. It takes me, I don't hate them, but like it takes a lot for me to get into a sitcom, like a lot.
Yeah, and the contrivance I can't get past it.
And what he says, and Andy says, and it's like dead, it's just canned laughter, and they're all dead inside.
They're all dead, right?
And I laughed my ass off because I was like, that's exactly Paul's probably thoughts, on this. And the only one I can think of that I know you'd like is Seinfeld and stuff, but that's a little smarter, more, smarter kind of thing than,
it's an anti-sitcom is really kind of what it is.
It's a show about nothing. But it was
just, it's a show about nothing. They made a lot of money off that show.
Oh yeah.
That's what they call it. They call it a show about nothing because that's literally what I'm not just calling it that. Like it's literally that's what they
that was their original concept that they pitched.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, I mean,
they wanted it to be a regular sitcom, and there's like, no, we hate sitcoms. This is going to be about nothing. And they're like, what do you mean it's going to be about nothing? It's like, yeah, it's going to be about nothing.
It's going to be about all the shit that people actually deal with in life, but funny, and they did a good job. Taxi, as we saw in some of the clips that they had or whatever for it, was so utterly ridiculous at times, but it was because, Andy Kaufman kind of made that show likable, because he had this character that was just off the wall bonkers, just sort of, as they said, he's the Fonz. He really was the Fonz. He was the breakout character.
Yeah, I don't know. I always had an issue with that because I thought Danny DeVito was the breakout character. He was the guy that I liked to watch because I remember when I was a kid when Taxi came on, and Laka was weird and everything, but it was Danny DeVito's character being mean as shit to everybody that got everybody laughing, and that's really who became a star after that film.
He even 5 foot tall. Yeah. He is.
He might be 5 foot tall. That's about like he's pretty short.
No, that show made Danny DeVito.
Yeah. And Danny DeVito hadn't done another show till It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, also playing sort of a mean character in a way, or
he's
whatever.
Great at it.
Yeah, he's just and so him playing George Shapiro was a lot of fun too. Like I know you're like confused about it, but I think it was I thought he just was hilarious.
He's great. He's one of my favorite actors. He's amazing. Hi, Bubby.
And it was also really great to see David Letterman. Now, it was David Letterman now, obviously, or whatever it was then in 1999. So, but I actually watched the real David Letterman episode with Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman. It's like 12 minutes long, and it's a lot of fun. Like those two together, they were so great. There was and Jerry Lawler was fantastic at like I don't know if they wrote this stuff out beforehand or if they were doing improv, but he was so good. Like the stuff he said to Andy, I remember this. He goes, I don't know if your mom and dad wanted a boy or the mom and dad wanted a girl, but I think they got both.
Yeah.
And I was just like that. Oh man.
Well, and then the other thing is the movie brings up, although it doesn't really go into too much details, the fact that it wasn't just Andy Kaufman. It was also his friend and his the writer, was it George?
No, Bob Zmuda.
Bob Zmuda. Yeah, I mean they were a package. They did a lot of that stuff together, and they do show him there, but I don't know. I think the movie presents it more as this was Jim Carrey. I mean, I'm sorry, as Andy Kaufman.
Bob Zmuda was actually in Man on the Moon. Did you know that?
I had heard that he was in there. I since I don't know what he looks like, I didn't.
Okay, he was in the Fridays episode, or whatever, where he had what is it? Andy Kaufman was supposed to be on drugs, and he couldn't. He didn't want to do drugs, and he kind of like decided live he wasn't going to do it or whatever. But he's Bob Zmuda was the really tall boss, basically guy that was telling him, hey man, you had 3 days to look over the script and you never gave us any notes. Now you're coming when we're about to go live and you're telling us you can't do this. No, you're doing it and everything. And I thought that was just like, when I saw that he was the one who did that, I was like, that's a great, like you gave him something, it's like it's like Conrad Brooks playing the bartender and having one line of going, is you want any more, kid, or something, or whatever. Like,
yeah, that's like the movie's one of the few parts where it's kind of meta. And to me, those two together were sort of meta before meta was really a thing. You know what I mean? It's like pre-meta. But the film it didn't really go into that much meta, in my opinion, that it could have. You know what I mean?
It tried in the beginning with the whole confusing you and starting it off and, and doing like kind of talking to the camera thing in the beginning, but then it really tried to like be a real movie, and give you something that, you really, I don't know.
It's funny because deep in your heart, if Andy Kaufman had made this film, that's how the whole movie would have been. You never would have gotten anything about Andy Kaufman. It would have been something ridiculous where you're expecting stuff all this time and you never get it.
Right. Absolutely. I bet if he wrote his own biography or whatever, it would have been more like, it would have been more silly and more like weird and out there and stuff.
I don't understand why you think the beginning of it was like brilliant. Like just because he did something backwards, like that's my entire life. I must be Einstein.
No, I mean, no, it's just the idea that he just wanted
Let's start the movie off backwards. Genius.
Well, that's just the shit kind of stuff he did. He liked fucking with the audience.
I'm sorry, it's not genius like at all. And I love like Jim Carrey, and I really don't know much about Andy Kaufman, but
right, but it's like
a turtle could have done that.
I know, but like, and was it 99 or whatever, year 1999? Like people weren't like, even you said you started off thinking it was, he got you, and so you even thought it started off with a like, backwards.
Well, yeah, I mean, in my defense, I also am like terrible at paying attention to movies. A lot of times, if I do find a movie that I'm like, oh, like, okay, I like this scene or whatever, like I'll actually have to make myself sit down and go and watch the movie again. You know this, Jonathan. You live with me.
Yeah. The thing is that it's actually a little sad to me because the guy that would have found that humorous that Jackey had fallen for it would have been Andy Kaufman, who never saw it, who was dead. Jim Carrey,
or
not
is
Jim Carrey's humor.
Or is he?
Wait, is it a conspiracy theory that Andy Kaufman's not dead?
There's been a lot of conspiracy theories about that.
So yes, and there's one specific that's
Interesting.
amazing. There, Michael Kaufman, his brother, has been known to say, or has said, that Andy's alive and has a daughter who is living with him now, or whatever, and they're all, he went on stage once, pulled out a note, like, from an envelope, and said, Andy wrote to me and said he's doing just fine right now. And I was like thinking, that would be the fucking best fucking, like, because they even say at one point, other than faking my own death, I can't up everybody else. But
I mean, it's not that out there. It's not that out there. Like, it's possible.
It is possible. He could be living.
Would the court be willing to grant me a short bathroom break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
No, I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, do you need to go to the bathroom? Okay.
Yeah, I need to pee really fast.
All right, you go.
Everybody knows my restroom problems.
Okay. All righty.
Real fast is the only way I can pee.
Yep.
Pause.
Well, you want me to pause it?
Probably.
Okay. I'll have to edit this. And we are back. So
let's talk about our peeing.
No.
So all right. So we're back to just continue discussing Man on the Moon, which, by the way, has an amazing soundtrack too, like with REM not only giving us Man on the Moon, which was their already song, and that's the basis of the title, but they also did The Great Beyond, which was the song they added, and just for Man on the Moon, and
Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's at least one or two other movies with Jim Carrey that plays Man on the Moon. If you believe they saw a man on the moon. Yeah, it's in. I'll have to find which movie it is, but I know for a fact because whenever you mentioned that, I thought you were talking about that movie.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking of another movie with Jim Carrey in it. Awesome.
Do you know that movie he did with what's her name? Zoe something?
Zoe Deschanel?
She sings. The same girl that's in Else.
Oh, are you saying Yes Man?
Yeah, I think Man on the Moon is in Yes Man.
Oh, weird. That was after Man on the Moon, so maybe they put it back in there. I'll have to rewatch
I think they did.
I do love that movie. It's very Liar Liar like, which is
nothing beats Liar Liar.
Yeah, well, it's it's the same idea, except he actually has control over,
himself?
saying yes. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a great triple feature would be Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, and
Bruce Almighty is hilarious.
Yeah, and Yes Man. All three of those together have sort of this like kind of fantasy element to it.
Paul's face is hilarious. He's like he's like throwing up in it.
He's
right
like,
now.
He's like, I don't fucking want to watch that shit,
Hey, that's what makes us all unique individuals. We can't all like the same shit.
Yeah, no, and
well, Jackey, you gotta say you're pretty awesome about this, because I would have expected you to be like, "What? You don't like Jim Carrey, you idiot!" Blah 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 blah.
What? When have you ever heard me be like that?
That's true. That's true.
That's
your
other
own
people.
Voice of me in your head. I don't do that.
No, she doesn't care.
Maybe like years and years ago, I might have done something like that, but not in the past like 5 or 6 years. I matured. Okay, I matured.
Yay!
Yay for maturity. High five.
I'm the opposite. I'm getting more silly and childlike as I get older.
That's what happens when you get older. Let me know when you get into diapers. I like taking care of old people.
I'm ready for diapers right now. Just like Zeke, I could just go whenever I want.
Jackey will just show you her pee pads. She'll give it to you. You can have but anyway,
Jesus Christ.
Every single time, Jackey,
we get on the bathroom. I know.
I know. Like, what is up with that? I don't know. Oh Lord. And it's not like you started it, or anything. It just happens.
No. Yeah, it really does. Lots of people have noticed that. They make the same thing. Like, what is it? Every single time you're around, people start talking about their bowel movements. I'm like, I don't know.
They're
I don't
comfortable around you.
I don't know though, but I
Probably.
did get a friend of mine, and I just started singing 1, 2, 3, 4, count my buttholes. So.
Oh, don't tell people how I turn Christian songs into butthole songs.
You just did. I didn't say that.
Dang it.
That is awesome. I
I'm
think
sorry,
that might be my
Jesus.
favorite thing about you.
Jesus gives me grace. He forgives me. There's much worse things going on.
There are worse things in the world going on right
Hey,
now.
our
than you
butthole
talking
is a
about butthole.
blessing. So
There
you
you
have
go.
4 of them.
Yep. All right. We don't need to go
Face.
into whatever
Your
that is.
face.
What?
I think
No,
Andy
I wasn't
Kaufman
gonna
would
go
approve
into
of all of
anything.
this
I was just
discussion.
making shit up.
Literally. All
Andy
right.
Kaufman would
Literally.
approve of all of this.
Oh,
See,
God.
Andy Kaufman would love this discussion because, he'd just be like, you guys are just trolling my movie now.
Rolling.
You're not even talking
See
about my
me
movie anymore.
trolling. They
Trolling, trolling,
hating.
trolling.
But anyway, to go back to Man on the Moon, which is the movie that we were discussing, I think, at some point earlier.
The
So
whole podcast, okay, jackass?
okay, so I do love this, that we all have kind of different opinions on this movie, and everything. Like I love also that, Paul, you actually said you kind of liked it better the next time, even though you didn't like Jim Carrey, you still liked it a little
Right.
better than the meh,
And
probably.
that's partly because at this point in my life, I don't like Jim Carrey. Whereas in 1999, I friggin' hated Jim Carrey. So that whole thing
And that
has toned down
might have been
considerably
the
over the
thing
years.
too, because in '99 he was sort of on the top of his,
You couldn't
legacy.
swing a dead cat without seeing something from Jim Carrey, and it just
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was his time.
Yeah, he was
It
in his
was.
prime, basically, right
So
then
I'm
and there.
interested. Why don't you like him now?
As opposed to then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all the things that I disliked about him, I still dislike. It's just that because he's not in my face constantly, because of Hollywood pushing him on me, like Will Smith or what's her name, Julia, what's her face. Whenever there's somebody that Hollywood gets their meat hooks into and decides they're going to be in every single movie, and they shove it in your face constantly.
Yeah, I get
that
that.
part is
There's
gone.
like a it like
Yes.
guy and female like every season.
And you know what? We talked about this, Jackey, when we were living together. You and I used to watch like Kevin Hart movies all the time, and then all of a sudden we kind of got Kevin Harted out, because he's in everything.
Because he was everything, and it's like I started watching him before he was famous, so it was funny back then. And then it's like now he's on every commercial. Now, like he just has too many stand-ups now, and they're all a lot of alike. And
or The Rock.
I'm sad
The Rock
that it
is
burned
everywhere. And I'm kind of burnt out on The Rock.
Yeah,
A
Julia
little
Roberts.
bit.
That's who I was trying to remember.
Oh, Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
But Julia Roberts, I don't even see her anymore. Like,
No.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I'm a little more forgiving about when it comes to the female actresses, because they kind of have to ride that for a while, because Hollywood decides that after a certain age, actresses are no longer any use, and so they just throw them to the side. So
What about Jennifer Lawrence?
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence is getting up there too.
No,
Not quite
she was
as bad.
everywhere for a while. Now
Yeah.
she's like, you don't see her in anything. She used to be like, if you went to the grocery store, she was on the front pages of all those fake fucking magazines. She was in every movie. Like, it got annoying.
And that's the thing with Hollywood too, is that like a lot of times these actors have to fight to like keep being who they are, otherwise they start fading away anyway. Even including Jim Carrey for a while was doing, as we said, he was in his prime, he was doing all these things, then all of a sudden he stopped doing things, and now he only does it every now and then.
And the thing is that one they go to the next one. So after that, it was going to be Will Ferrell, it's going to be Adam Sandler, it's going to be Michael Myers, it's going to be all pretty much the exact same thing with a different name, and they're going to grind that guy into the dust until you can't stand him anymore.
Yeah,
and then move on to the next one.
That's why I don't really agree with Hollywood, because you have to think like what that does on someone's psyche. Like, they build people up to like higher than Mount Everest and then just drop them
yeah.
replace them. Like,
unless you ever reach a level like, say, what's his face? Dude from The Shining.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack
Nicholson.
Nicholson.
Unless you reach his level, you are disposable in Hollywood, no matter how famous you are for the moment.
I don't even think to me, and we can debate on this, I don't even think Jack Nicholson is on a certain level. I think that he's just really likable and Hollywood has kept him around.
Right. Well, he's been in a lot of great movies,
Right. But Paul he's really good.
Yeah, he's good. He's great. He's fantastic.
Yeah,
and
I love Jack Nicholson.
He's gotten to the level where he can pretty much call his own shots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, as he should. I mean, he's a veteran in the movie industry,
And arguably, I would say Danny DeVito is pretty close to that level as well.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, but do you know what? They really only do this for males. They really don't do it for women.
Yeah, you're right. And I agree with Paul as saying, like, the it person for women disappear like that,
Yeah,
it's like women hit 40, that's it. They don't write good characters for older women. They just don't.
Yeah. Hollywood's so unrealistic, and it just hurts me to think like everybody sees like a bunch of these celebrities like fall off the wagon, but it's like, look at what they've been through.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I feel so sorry for this celebrity that made all this money. It's like, it doesn't matter how much money they made. Like they got fucked. Like their brains are messed up.
And a lot of these folks, they are not necessarily performers because they could just go out and get a job. They're doing a lot of them because they have to, because it's in them, and they don't really have anything else.
They don't know another life.
They can't function in any other way. They're not going to go to a company and be, a manager. That's not what they're going to be able to do.
They have to start their own companies. That's like the only thing that they can do. Yeah, because going back to like normal day-to-day life is not realistic.
And that's what I really liked about Andy, being portrayed in this movie, is that he was sort of that person who went against the system. He didn't care if he was liked or not liked. You know what I mean?
He's trying his best to steer us back into the subject of the film.
You actually gave me a good way to do it, because it's honestly, that's the thing. Like, that's what made Andy Kaufman actually likable in this movie, is that the whole time, Andy just did not care. Like, if anybody wanted him to do Lekka, he gave them The Great Gatsby. If anybody wanted, right? Like, he was just like, these guys, this is what they're gonna get for like fucking up my night. I wanted to give them something different. They want the same. They're getting something different anyway. Right. And I love that. Like, I think that is honestly what I think this movie was sort of the core thing about this movie. But as far as like the actors go in Hollywood, it's completely different. So, a lot of those people, they do everything they can to stay afloat, to be recognized and everything. And nowadays you see shows like shows and movies that are on streaming. There's so many different platforms. There's so many different ways that people can get famous. They can get TikTok famous. They can, this world that we live in now.
Which that's stupid now. Like, literally, I know so many actresses here in Los Angeles that if you don't have a certain amount of followers, then an agency's not going to look at you.
Right.
Ridiculous.
And
the popularity contest. We're back in high school.
Yeah, it's not a fair game anymore. It's not based off of talent.
Oh no, and you can buy these like fake, people following you and shit, and you can rig it so that you can get more famous than so and so, but nobody knows. You go down the street and you say this person, and they'll be like, I don't know who that person is, and they'll probably be a TikTok star, and I wouldn't know who they are. Reality TV, television. Jackey, you know a lot more about that than I do. If I said I
Sadly.
don't know who this person is, you'll be like, oh, that person's on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I don't watch that show.
It's a bad drug. It's like
Yeah,
something that I watch and zone out on.
yeah. But and it's understandable. Like some people have different, some people take
And you see why I watch shitty, weird movies all the time, because
Yeah.
I can't even do that.
The thing is it's not that I dislike or like the people on these reality stars. I like to see their lifestyles because they're just so different than anything I've ever had. It's
right.
like
No,
to see.
and that's a lot of reason why I like certain things, that I've never seen or whatever. It's just a matter of Andy was somebody who just honestly just didn't
Yeah,
didn't
and
give
the
a
thing
fuck.
is, he's just a very, very complicated, complex character with a very complicated story, and it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to make a straight ahead, typical Hollywood film about this guy and stay true to who he is. So
Yeah.
in a way, it's kind of a very difficult assignment that Milos Forman had and that the writers had with this. And yeah, obviously they cared about it and they gave it the best they could. It just, I don't know, it just didn't quite pan out the way I was hoping that it would originally. And yeah, and again, part of it is just me, I'm just not going to like Jim Carrey. That's a tough thing to overcome. It really is.
Right. And then another sad thing is that there's going to be people that like listen to this and they're going to be like, oh, they're just complaining about Hollywood because like none of them ever made it.
Yeah.
A big fuck you. I don't want to be in Hollywood. I quit. The industry didn't kick me out.
Yeah. So
and
yeah,
I hate Hollywood. I'm as anti-Hollywood as you can get.
Yeah.
When we went, when Paul came to LA and everything and whatnot, we ended up going to like sites and locations of independent films, not of like the big Hollywood stuff, because he could care less about that.
There was this one moment when we were on Hollywood Boulevard and we're looking at all the stars, and there was remember that one guy with the maps, and he was going to sell us the map to all the stars because he was like, oh, you're going to come see all the stars. And of course he's naming off people that I couldn't give two shits about. And I'm like, I don't care about that. I want to see Ed Wood. I want to see, all these other folks that I liked. And he had no idea who I was talking about.
Right.
I've been up and down Hollywood Boulevard, like the Walk of Fame, so many times. And I just walk across the stars. Like I really don't ever glance at them. The only one that I ever like stopped at and looked down and read was Robin Williams.
Oh, so did you take a picture?
I took a picture of it. Yeah. Because
that's so cute.
He's one of my all-time faves. And, he's gone now. So it was after he had passed. So it was like,
and it's funny, Moody and I talked about, when we were thinking about who else could have played this character, he mentioned Robin Williams. And I was like, well,
really? Yeah.
If anything, Robin Williams is even more over the top, but I don't know. I think it would have been very interesting. It would have been a very interesting choice.
I don't think so. I don't think he's nearly as over the top as Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and I think he would have been more restrained if, because given the script, there are times where I feel like it could have been restrained, but Jim Carrey, of course, can't just do that.
Robin Williams has shown restraint. I mean, if you ever watched that Homicide episode where he's playing the father whose son or his wife gets murdered, that was played straight, and he was excellent in that. In fact, I think he was put up for an Emmy for that.
Right. Well, even in Mrs. Doubtfire, I know he's over the top in that, but when he's playing straight, he's very straight.
That's one of her favorite movies of all time, and everything.
But he seems like a normal guy, like a normal dad. That like there's a different side to him because he starts off doing like the voiceover work or whatever. But of course, when Mrs. Doubtfire comes in, it's over the top. But
yeah,
he can play normal much better than. It's not even much better than Jim Carrey because I'm sure Jim Carrey can play normal. I think it's more accepted by Robin Williams. Like nobody wants to see normal from Jim Carrey.
Yeah, people are expecting to see somebody over the top for him.
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Because with Robin Williams, I never really wanted to see Mrs. Doubtfire, but Robin Williams played a serial killer in Yeah, I forget the name of it, but it's like
How do you forget the name? I go to bed watching serial killer shit. You're gonna pop this on me and not know the
I
name?
just
It's
assumed you would have
called
seen it.
Insomnia. He did
No,
that.
it's like,
He's in
remember,
it.
he's like a Polaroid. He's like
Oh
he's
no,
like a
no, 1
film
hour
guy.
photo. 1 hour
Yeah,
photo.
1 hour photo. Yeah, and in
Is
fact, I
he the
think you're right.
killer?
Yeah, actually,
No.
I think there's a couple movies where he does that, but yeah, 1 hour photo is like the
A
big one.
couple?
Yeah.
Oh, my night's full now after I finish my fucking homework.
Oh my goodness, how am I producing new stuff for you, Jackie? I would have
Because the dumbest shit that you don't care about, I'm like, oh, what is that?
1 hour photo is
I'm
on.
like the same thing. I mean, I'm sure I talk about all the weird movies you don't know or care about.
Right.
Well, yeah. It's on what, Jonathan?
It's on Tubi, so you can watch it. You know, watch it before you go to bed tonight.
Is it okay? So somebody questioned me. Okay, not just somebody. Several people have questioned me. Like, what is it? Like, how do you watch serial killer shit? Like, I watch true crime stuff, like real stories, before you go to bed. So I Googled it, and apparently, because people who watch true crime stuff are so into trying to get into someone else's mind because they can't believe someone is that evil, that it releases certain endorphins in your body that release and make you feel actually comfortable, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Did you ever
There's
watch
a fact for everyone.
Did you ever watch Mindhunter on
Yeah.
Netflix? That's one of my favorites. That was so well done.
I have been binge watched anything that serial killer documentary or whatever on.
I have a whole bunch of books that I've been collecting over the years that is all about that.
Nice. Yeah, well, we talked about this too, Jackie. Is like, how can you be into like true crime and that stuff and not be into horror, at all?
Because it's fake.
Because so you like people who actually murder people than people who don't actually.
It sounds fucked up, but like, I'm into psychology, so I'm like,
it's funny. Like, I know other people who are the same thing, the same way as you. They hate horror, but they love true crime. And I'm just always like, wait a minute, isn't it basically the same thing?
It's not. Like, true crime doesn't show all the like killings and stabbings and all of that. If anything, you get to, hopefully you get the killer to give like a some type of speech or whatever during the documentary, but it's nothing like a horror movie.
Yeah,
if you hear a weird noise, it's Zeke. He's being loud. In fact,
you know me, I hate slashers because slashers, it's just the same crap over and over and
There's
over.
Titties and blood.
It's nothing like what actually happens when an actual serial killer goes and kills people.
Right.
Because people don't want to see that. They want to see the Hollywood version of that.
Fantasy.
Right. But I do love fantasy kind of horror. I do love the traditional, like vampires, witch, ghosts, that kind of stuff, even though I don't think it exists, because I love the whole archetype thing.
Yeah, but it's fun to escape on something like that.
Right. But if you're going to go for realism, I'd rather, it's something like a true crime thing, but just not a slasher one, because the only one I can think of that was ever anywhere near where it should be was Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. That's about it. That's about the only one. And it's grim. That's a grim film.
They made like a horror movie about him and it was pretty accurate. Is that what you're saying?
You've never seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer? Oh, that's you. Yeah, put that on your list.
Put that on your list. It stars Michael Rooker.
This is why I love doing this stuff. Now I was sitting here last night. I finished all of my homework, which was hard as F.
I heard some of it last night.
Well, you helped me. You did. Yeah. You helped me. But thank you.
Yeah, But
I was so amped I couldn't go to sleep, and I'm like, I need some serial killer stuff to calm down.
Let me tell you, Michael Rooker puts on a performance that will chill you to the bone.
I can guarantee you, it's not going to chill me, but
I'm telling you,
I've heard some things. I've never actually seen it, and
you've not seen it either. Oh my God, we got to do this. We got to do
Jonathan. Let's watch it together.
Yeah, we should watch. We should do this for my next film.
Yes.
Actually, that would be before this one. That would be April, so that would be coming up. So we'll have to do that again.
So down.
Interesting that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk about that. So by the time that you've actually seen this episode, you will already have seen the other one that
Would it
we
be
have done.
funny? Because can you imagine Andy Kaufman as a serial killer? He would do
Oh my
exactly what
God.
we've taught. He was like, haha, I've grabbed you,
Wait.
kidnapped you, I've tied you up, and you expect me to kill you, but instead I'm just going to throw donuts at you.
Yeah.
He
That's hilarious.
was he was in a movie, a weird movie where he played like a robot or something.
Who?
Oh, God.
Kaufman?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Andy Kaufman was in a movie called
Bleeps,
Heartbeats.
love bleeps, something like that. Heart bleeps. That's
Heartbeats.
what it's called.
Heartbeats.
Yeah. Horrible. Horrible.
And basically it was two household robots run away to start a family.
How do you have a
And-
household robot?
Dude, guess who's in it?
What?
Because it's the future.
No, hold on. He's tripping out on something.
Jackey.
What?
Randy Quaid is in it.
Yay!
So so we found, if you didn't know this already, Paul, but she's a huge fan of three of her favorite comedians. Three. I mean, there's like, I think maybe 5 or 6 that you really like adore, but 3 of them are obviously Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Will Ferrell, and then there's also Chevy Chase.
Chevy.
And she loves the National Lampoon movies.
National
especially-
Lampoon. Yeah, the Christmas in Vegas vacation.
Yeah.
So if you're a
and-
Chevy Chase fan, you have to love Community. It's like my favorite comedy.
I don't even know what that is, but I'll look it up.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, you definitely have to
Jackey.
see that. That's it's very crazy. And Paul
Is
Paul
Chevy
loves
in
it.
it?
Yeah,
I need,
Chevy's in it.
yes. I need to spend like a year of my life showing you all these movies and TV shows that you haven't seen.
I literally said I only had one wish at the end of my acting career, and it was to do something with Chevy Chase. Not any of the other ones, just Chevy. But I have a feeling he's going to pass before that happens. He's pretty old.
Well, you never know. He's still doing stuff. I'm
I don't
happy.
want him to go. I like him.
Yeah, I'm saying he's still doing shit. So like you still have a good chance.
And the older you get, the more crazy you get. I bet he's fun. Not Randy Quaid fun,
Yeah,
because
no,
that
you-
guy
you-
lost his fucking
you've-
shit.
Gotta watch Community. It's one of my absolute favorite shows of all time.
Didn't Randy Quaid get into a lot of trouble? I don't know. He did.
Yeah, he
something.
lost his mind. He came out with this weird sex tape with him and his wife, and yeah, he went off the rocker, which a lot of actors do. You know what? A lot of us normal people do from time to time when life fucking happens.
Yeah. So I mean,
but
So are you
unfortunately,
saying
his
you're-
was like documented.
Are you saying, Jackey, that you're just not crazy enough to be a Hollywood actress?
No, I'm not saying that. I've had my fucking moments. Trust me. I just have grown through that.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
hopefully
I mean,
you've-
heck, I'm certainly crazy enough, but just not in the same way.
Right.
well, Jackey, you said you matured, and I really, really do believe that. Even though you still love your fart jokes and stuff, and everything.
Yeah, but all the
wrong with
other
that.
crazy shit isn't going on anymore. So.
yeah, it's true.
That was COVID.
That was COVID. COVID had some. I think that was the end of your crazy like.
It was.
It was like you were shedding out the shedding off the skin of the craziness.
I was like, the world's all locked up. Fuck it.
That's when we were living together. It's just when like the world was fucking.
Dude, you literally moved to LA and then the world shut down like 3 months after.
It was all
Timing
my
is
fault.
everything.
It was all my fault. I knew it. I should.
No, it's not your fault. It was just sucky fucking timing. I mean, even though I drove you crazy as a roommate, I fucking took care of your ass. So I don't want to hear you complaining.
I'm not complaining. Not
Home
at all.
cooked meals all the time. Taco Tuesday.
Oh my God, you got Taco Tuesday? You never told me about Taco Tuesday.
Oh yeah, it was funny because it was never planned as Taco Tuesday. It's just I always looked
Yeah.
over and go, "Oh my God, it's Tuesday," and we're just
So
like, and we're already in Taco Bell.
we
or
would
whatever.
we would either get from Taco Bell or I would make homemade tacos.
Yeah,
Ooh, yum.
yeah. So it was either one or the other, and so, but it was randomly always on
Never
Tuesday.
said homemade tacos. All I got was the macaroni story over and over and over.
Oh God, what macaroni?
No, I think she's talking about the noodles.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
noodles.
damn,
That
wasn't-
let's
that
not do
wasn't-
that.
She's like, I'm done. Let's not talk
I'm
about
done. Cut.
that. Speaking of which, I think we are coming to that end of it, but to kind of wrap everything up, what was your guys' favorite scene in the movie?
What was it that I texted you? That weird ass fucking song he was singing?
Where he was talking about the chicken at Kentucky Fried?
Yes. That whole scene was so random. It cracked me up. I can't remember all the words, but
I just love when he comes down and he starts talking to everybody and he's like, I thought you had or it's like, is that cottage cheese? Oh no, that's just your ass.
that's the same scene, right?
Right, that's the same
Yeah.
scene. He's just being a complete ass to everybody.
That's what because I love obnoxious, horrible Tony Clifton. So yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing scene.
Yeah, it was gold.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? What was your favorite scene?
That's it. That would have been the one. I love Tony Clifton. I love how he's such a rotten piece of crap. He's my favorite. He's my favorite character of Andy Kaufman, and he was the best thing that Jim Carrey did.
Yeah. And what is it? Later on, when he was like, when they had to fuck around because they couldn't have Jim Carrey or whatever, Andy Kaufman be Tony Clifton, all the time, and they would put Bob Zamuda in there and everything as Tony. And then there's that great scene where, he kicks Andy Kaufman out. And so all the audience gets mad because they came to see Andy. Really, they didn't come to see some random guy they didn't know. They thought he was Andy. And when it was like, oh God, he was telling everybody that he was not, like it was a completely different.
That shit was hilarious. He come out like a whole different person.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like,
who is he trying to be? He was being a character,
Yeah, he was just trying to be a different character. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you obviously knew it was him.
But then at times he wasn't. It was Bob Zamuda playing him. And so it was just amazing that he was able to do that stuff. And so I knew Paul would love that kind of stuff because he loves
the
Shoals.
Other thing I like too is I was young, but I remember when he did the whole wrestling bit on Saturday Night Live and where he was, he paid these women to, pretend to get, beaten up by him and degraded by him. There were a lot of people who got upset by that back then.
The real Andy Kaufman?
Yeah. They didn't get that it was a joke that they had, he'd paid them. So, yeah.
But it was on TV.
Yeah, it was on TV. So
and people thought it was real?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Our society is a crap hole. It's just a black hole in the middle of space.
Yes.
They thought he was just like, they thought he was really beating up on these women and whatever, and they didn't know anything, and it was all a setup. It was all a joke.
Setup. It was all.
Well, anyone that's offended by what I said, you can go eat a pile of poop because you're pretty fucking dumb if you thought that shit was real.
Well, I've got that movie.
What, the people that eat a pile of poop?
I've shown you some.
Oh my God!
You showed me was it Pink Flamingos?
Pink Flamingos.
That's for What the Fuck Friday. So
God.
Yep.
My month is filled. My whole month.
I mean, you had enough stuff. I mean, with Paul could just probably show you a bunch of shit that you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
This is what I've been doing my entire
Paul doesn't
life.
ever message me.
What?
You gotta send me. Paul doesn't ever message me.
I'm shy.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I don't know what. I don't think he's that shy.
No, well,
take a Papa Xanax. She'll be all right.
I've always been shy with Jackey, just because I just assumed, you just have every freaking guy in the world, instant messaging you and coming up to you.
It's a difference when you're like,
don't.
And even if she did, it's a difference between being her friend and being some guy who just like
being some fucking creep. Like, I know you.
Yeah.
Well, there are some people that think I'm a creep just because the whole cow thing.
Well, you are a fucking creep, but like I like you, so it's okay.
Yeah, you're okay being.
I know you're not gonna. You're like your own creep. You're not gonna be like weird out of the way with me in any type of way. Otherwise, I would have already told you to fuck off.
Yeah, well,
you're approved. Stamp approved.
I would be weird in the way that and Candy Kaufman is kind of weird because it finds it amusing. But yeah, I would never
You're
be
in your
harmful.
own head, dude. Get out of there.
I would never be harmful to you or to anyone else.
I know you wouldn't because I'd come kill you. Everybody knows that.
No, pretty much, she said that to me too. Like if I tried to, whatever, harm her, we lived together. And if I were ever to whatever, she would have.
We got to weird you up a little bit more, Moody. That's what I've been working on.
No, Jesus Christ. Stop.
Yeah.
He needs a little bit more weirding.
No.
He already thinks I'm weird enough. She's
oh man.
Dude, the shit I've seen with him, no.
I'm
good. He is
way.
Good.
I'm weird in my own way.
Yeah, you are. You're good.
But yeah.
Booty tootie disco cutie.
See, this is the thing. He shows me these weird ass movies that even you would be like, because I remember messaging you or calling you and being like, "Oh, this is what we watch." You're like, "What?"
Was that when I first moved?
No, that was like a few months ago or something, or whatever.
Was that before I started bothering you because I don't have any friends?
No, that was when you started bothering me because you don't have any friends. Exact time.
Well, then why wasn't I invited to watch?
Yeah, Moody.
Because you don't have them on digital. You have all these things on DVD.
I have a lot of them on digital.
I
can upload them.
He's talking to me, right?
Yeah, I can upload a lot of these movies to a private thing on YouTube where I can give you guys the passwords. You guys can come on. We can all watch them.
See,
all right.
There's a solution to every problem.
Fine, Jackey. You'll have to come on one of our next What the Fuck Fridays. Okay.
Unless you're dead, there's no way you can be resurrected. There's no fixing that. Any other problem you can fix. Well, unless you lose an arm, probably not going to get that back.
You might, because you can reattach an arm.
If it's put on ice.
You can get that Donnelly Heising thing where it's just you're just putting on a shiny glove and that's your new arm.
Jesus Christ.
She doesn't even know what you're talking about.
Your robo arm.
Your robo arm.
I'm gonna make you do my homework tonight if you keep it up, Paul.
I don't know. Her homework's pretty hard, man. We were going over it and we were like,
And then I was getting confused. I kept going back and forth. I was walking circles in my living room.
I already have my MA degree. I don't have to do homework anymore.
But what if I paid you?
The way you could pay me is watch more crappy movies.
Dude, that's it. All right.
That's
you got homework tonight.
We can because we keep running out of people to torment. I mean, show movies to. So yeah, that would be it.
I'm used to being tormented. Shown movies too.
Dear Jackie's college, she's just joking.
They're not gonna fucking listen to me. No.
They're not going on YouTube and looking up Jackie Hall stuff and
they're not. They are not. I am not on their list.
Go to the image section.
All right. Well, anywho, well, thank you, Jackey. This is wonderful, and I had a blast. And Paul, thank you so much. Once again, it was about to be just me and Jackey, and I'm very glad it wasn't. But it was going to be me and Jackey because I now even mentioned to you that we were going to do it because I didn't want to bother you with something if I knew you weren't a fan of Jim Carrey. But when you said, I'd be down with it and whatever, I was like, well, it's your show,
I was happy to hear that Paul was coming on.
2 reasons, thank you. A, I don't always necessarily have to love the movie and or people involved with the movie, especially if you need an extra person. I don't mind jumping in. There are very, very few movies that I'll say no to. B, I got to be honest, you said it was going to be with Jackey, and we always seem to have a good time with Jackey, so I was down with it.
I'm a party.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's always fun. And so if you guys haven't heard our we've done
Jesus Christ.
Whoa, what happened to you?
Hold on.
Suddenly things got very dark.
Whoa, we lost her for a second.
She's vanished.
She'll call right back.
I think Zeke and Bubby have dragged her to the kitchen and are demanding food. They're like, growling and like pulling all the way over and pointing to their empty bowls and saying, "Feed us, feed us."
Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. We're still doing the show, but Jackey is back. Hold on.
Feed us, blonde, opposable thumb, hairless monkey.
Sorry.
I think, well, hairless. Well, yes, hairless in the body. Yeah. She definitely has hair on her head.
What are you talking about?
He's saying that you have a hairless body.
What the fuck? Jonathan, that is the weirdest shit to say.
Jonathan.
Jesus. He was saying that he was saying that was it Zeke? We have it on video. It's all recorded still.
One of you is in trouble.
But
Yeah,
he said
Jonathan.
that Zeke and Bubby stole you away and said, "Feed me, you hairless, chimp,
Opposable thumb monkey.
monkey." Yes.
What the
That's-
fuck is that shit?
And I
As
said,
animals see us as just, evolved monkeys. You're a
Okay.
hairless ape. Feed me,
So-
hairless ape mama.
what? So
I
I
don't
said she has
know
hair on
if
her
I
head.
would rather say thank you. I don't know.
All right,
I don't
we're
know what
done.
to say.
So we're about
done. Cut
we're-
it out. Good night.
You have
Bye-bye.
opposable thumbs. You can open up food cans. We can't.
What the
That-
fuck?
That was what. Okay. So anyway. Anyway, thank you guys for checking this out. This went just completely south, I guess, at the end.
Every show I'm on goes south.
Are you saying
I
you're
blame Tony Clifton.
let's hear your Tony Clifton imitation again.
You just did. God damn it.
Okay.
Yeah, you just did it.
Oh, yeah, you did. You did just
Pay
do it.
attention.
What was I love when he goes bam, bam.
Oh yeah.
Like what's the last name? Up and down the water.
Oh my god.
Just what a fucking asshole. I love it.
That shit's-
He's a likable asshole, like or whatever, which
He's
made it
likable
great.
because
He's like
an
me.
asshole.
Pretty much.
Paul doesn't know me that much.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever characterize
you-
you as an asshole.
If you lived with her as a roommate, you would.
I can be an asshole, but also love you at the same time.
Oh God, yeah.
Tough love, huh?
It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't know how she put up with me, but that happened.
Well, I'm on medication now and I'm seeing a therapist, so
That
I'm
explains
just
it.
kidding. That was before
Thanks.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Well,
that.
psychiatrist, right? I mean, they're all seeing each other back and forth because they're all nuts. You have to be nuts in order to understand nutty people.
That's true.
Agreed.
Yeah, you said your psychiatrist did have a psychiatrist.
Yeah, and my therapist had a therapist.
There you go.
Just because they had, and especially like they said something about you once, right? Like saying that they were going to need to talk to the therapist about this.
No, that was several times. That wasn't once.
That is awesome.
I was always left to the end of the day. That way they could go see their therapist right after.
Yep, they're like, we're done. Okay.
We're like, mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey,
we're done.
just be thankful, Moody, that when you were there, that she wasn't like a behavioral modification person.
The fuck?
That would have been fun.
What is that?
Modifying your behavior, modifying your behavior.
how you behave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we smack you when you do this, or do other things.
Well, she did smack me a lot, but
I did not. That's a fucking lie.
Oh my goodness.
You're gonna get smacked for that.
I'll smack you the next time I see you for that.
That's a lie.
No, you didn't.
There's a metaphorical smack.
I don't put my hands on people.
That's true. You don't want to touch people these days.
No, I don't. Might get corona.
All right, we're done.
We've said that 5 times. Goodbye.
Okay. Love you guys. Check us next week, where it's Paul's episode. But the week before, or the month or not next week, next month, And then month before was Us Again.
Water.
So there you go. Talking about Henry, the Portrait of the Serial Killer, I think. So
There you go.
hopefully. All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next month.
Peace out.
Bye.